Welcome everyone inside the Journeyman Boxing Studios, and this is Double Jab Radio for the 19th of June, 2015. I'm your host as always, Rich Quinones. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, RichQ on Q. And as always, subscribe to my YouTube page with all updated boxing content as well as amateur boxing content. And please, definitely keep journeymanboxing.com locked in. All right, so we got a little bit of time to play with on this Friday night. I want to get into a couple different things. Deontay Wilder, Danny Garcia, and really what's potentially next for Gennady Golovkin, GGG. Is he going to have to move up? But first, we start this Friday with Deontay Wilder. And let's be honest, Deontay Wilder, first title defense in Alabama, which was a great setting, great venue, taking on Eric Molina, who came in to this fight a huge underdog. And obviously, Deontay Wilder, because he won the belt, it was his discretion if he wanted to handpick the opponent. Now, I know a lot of people think that Eric Molina was not a strong opponent for Deontay Wilder. I agree wholeheartedly. I thought he was one of the most softest challengers out there ever. You can argue in the history of boxing throughout the heavyweight division to contend for a title or at least have an opportunity to dethrone a current champ. And I thought going into this, and I said it on the air, and I also said it doing different interviews, I thought if there was any hope that Wilder was going to make this a competitive contest and get past the third or fourth round, because I had him getting stopped inside of 4, he had to go to the body. He had to be ambitious. He had to be driven. He had to take some chances. And I know it's going to be tough against Wilder and his height and his reach and his strength, and he's an opposing figure. But Eric Molina was able to do that, and there was some success there. And you saw what happened now in that third round. What was interesting is that when he caught Wilder with that left and actually stunned him, that was a really missed opportunity for Molina. He did not pursue the attack. And that's why, like I said, on paper, when you looked at this, yeah, he might have been ranked in the top 10 by the WBC. It's not a good ranking. He came in with some power. He just couldn't close it out in that round, and he had a hard time pursuing that attack, and that was the big opportunity missed. And then we saw ultimately what Deontay was able to do and really just ambushed him from there. And Wilder did exactly what he had to do. He came out and he won the fight and he stopped his opponent. But with that being said, that fight should have been closed out within 5. There's absolutely no reason why, and this is no disrespect or to discredit Eric Molina, there's no reason why Deontay Wilder shouldn't have closed that up. He just shouldn't have closed that deal within 5 rounds. And I thought it was a very lethargic win. I thought Eric Molina, I'm not going to say scripted a blueprint on how to make it a difficult night for Deontay Wilder. But here's the thing. If that's Klitschko, not Tyson Fury, because I think Tyson Fury has a weak chin. But if that's, say, a Anthony Joshua, then guess what? Povetkin, then Wilder's going to be in for a dogfight. Because you saw what happened early on in that fight with Molina, and he made it, he turned it into a little bit of drama. It made good drama for the fight. Look, when Wilder fought Stavern, it's an easy argument. He never really fought very good top fighters. So there's still some questions, and he went the distance too. He's never done that before. And Molina also pushed him too in this fight. But there were some questions regarding Wilder, and I think they're legitimate questions. Molina went on record and said Wilder couldn't fight going backwards. Now, Wilder still won, you can argue every round, maybe 1 or 2, and scored 4 knockdowns. So when you go against taller heavyweights, Fury, Klitschko, as we mentioned, Povetkin, as we mentioned, Anthony Joshua, who is a really good-looking kid, 11-0, 6'6". He has everything Wilder does. He's got everything Wilder is physically, but I think he's more sound of a fighter, and I think he's actually technically better boxer than Wilder. He just hasn't been tested. You can't go off his win against Kevin Johnson, who's quote-unquote, you can label him a journeyman fighter, club fighter. So to me right now, Deontay Wilder is a vulnerable champ, and he has some weaknesses. It's just what fighter can exploit that. And you look at the heavyweight division, it's a soft division. It's not deep. I gave you 3 or 4 guys. What's going to happen is they're going to eliminate each other. it's all going to cancel itself out. And then ultimately, we're going to see who's going to step up. We're going to see who's going to step up and who's going to have an opportunity here. We know that, you know, you look at Tyson Fury, and everyone looks at Tyson Fury, and yeah, he's loud, he's braggadocious. He's also 6'9". But that means absolutely nothing if he doesn't have a chin. It means absolutely nothing. And we mentioned, talking a little bit about this, Anthony Joshua, and actually broke this down a lot with Showtime's Al Bernstein earlier in the week on my ESPN radio show 97.3 FM in New Jersey. You look at Anthony Joshua, 11-12-0, good fighter, young kid, 24, 25 years of age from the UK. He's got a good reach, 82 inches, 6'6", but he's also technically sound. And I'm not going to go by the win against Kevin Johnson. Yeah, he also fought Jason Gavin. I get it. He fought Zimbardo, Love. I understand all that. But in my eyes, he's a more technically sound fighter than Deontay Wilder. And I think, you know, the rest of these guys might cancel itself out. You still got Klitschko, obviously, there. So, again, that's something to keep an eye out for. All right. GGG. Gennady Golovkin. What's next for him? Well, again, same situation that Wilder's in the heavyweight, Golovkin is in as well. Look, he can't fight Mayweather at 154. Floyd's not going to take that fight. And forget about Andy Lee. Forget about Kid Chocolate. So if he moves up, maybe Andre Ward. And the interesting thing about Andre Ward is that when you're out of boxing for 8-9 months, if you're really inactive, that can feel like a year. 19 months, it's almost like a decade. And Andre Ward is still a very good fighter. He's an exceptional fighter. How much of the rust is he going to knock out over the weekend when he takes on a 40-fight veteran Paul Smith? I mean, obviously it's a tune-up. But what I'm looking for is see if he's going to knock off that rust. And Smith is a solid fighter from the UK. So when it's all said and done, for GGG, I think it's going to be real simple. I think it's going to be one fighter, Carl Froch. Ward's not going to fight him. They already fought. And again, look at the inactivity of Froch, and he's probably getting ready to retire. So if anything, I think it's a situation where you're going to see GGG probably go up at 168, not fight at a catchweight and fight Froch. And to me, that shows GGG is taking things serious. It tells me that, you know, and look, I think he's a very good fighter. I think he's an exciting fighter. I think he's got power and pop, and I love watching him fight. And I know there's been this words where he's basically just going back and forth and ripping Andre Ward, Ward ripping him. And I know the attacks began all the way back in February when Abel Sanchez, who's Golovkin's trainer, repeatedly called out Ward. And he said, quote, you know, basically Ward wouldn't last 12 rounds with Golovkin. And I love this quote. 3 years ago, I said that nobody from 154 to 168 will go 12 rounds with Gennady. I say that now. Not even Andre Ward would go 12 rounds. But Andre Ward's got to call Golovkin's promoter, his people, have got to call Tom Loeffler, make an offer. Make an offer, then that way the fight will get made. You just keep talking. It's never going to get made. Ward then responded, and he just went off. With Rick Reno does a great job with Boxing Scene, calling Golovkin and his camp liars, saying they're the ones that have been ducking, making countless excuses. Hey, listen, make the fight happen. That's fine. And I don't buy into Golovkin begging for a fight with Cotto or Alvarez, because those two weigh much less than Ward. Ward at 172. So again, let's see what Andre Ward can do tomorrow night against Smith. That's all I'm saying. Knock the rust off, and then we'll start talking about GGG and Ward. Lastly, before we close it out, on a Friday edition of Double Jab Radio. Again, Rich Quinones inside the Journeyman Boxing Studios. Thanks for joining us. All right, Danny Garcia. It's not really a big secret. Goes up to 147. Here's the problem that I have with Danny Garcia. And Danny Garcia is a very good boxer. And obviously, you know, being in the Philadelphia market, we talk a lot about the Philadelphia fighters. I give Danny Garcia credit for the win over Matisse. He boxed well. He knocked him down. He took the punches. He's got a tough chin. But guess what, folks? He lost to Herrera. Okay? He took on a club fighter in Rod Salka, which was a joke. And then you can argue that he lost to Peterson. Can't always get set on boxing flat-footed fighters. And now we see the fight that's coming up against Paulie Malignaggi. That's the perfect opponent for him. And it's a question of not fixing the brand, but more or less strengthening the brand of Danny Garcia. Because they believe this is a fight they can handle. Now, there's always a flip side to that coin. Garcia is a big puncher at 147. So he's not a monstrous puncher that Paulie Malignaggi might say to himself, hey, I can't step in the ring with this guy even at this stage in my career, even after getting knocked out, stopped by Porter. So if Paulie can actually make this a scrap, get up ahead of steam during the fight, box well for, say, 2, 3, 4 rounds, to me, that's an interesting fight. And Garcia is going into the fight as a favorite, and rightfully so. So the question is going to be, okay, if Garcia beats up on Paulie, people are going to say, look at Paulie. He's 33 years old. He's a great analyst for Showtime. He's going to have an opportunity to pursue that full time. He's got one foot outside of boxing, inside of broadcasting, and he's getting set to retire. Now, if by some chance, if he loses this fight stepping up in weight against an older boxer, it's disastrous. So it's a stepping stone fight at 147, and really it could be Paulie swan song as a fighter. Who knows? But it's more about Garcia, because to me, Danny Garcia is an enigma. He is an enigma. Can't figure him out. Great amateur. Guy worked hard. He overachieved. World class. Then people start to overlook him. Now, people are saying, hey, did Danny Garcia reach his peak? Is the ceiling, has it been touched? And he has to prove that that's not the case. Basically, he is one great or bad performance for making people remember him or forget him. That's why this fight to me is a crossroads fight, more or less on the side of Danny Garcia. Hey, folks, don't forget you can catch me every Monday through Friday on 97.3 FM ESPN Radio in New Jersey from 1 to 2. You can always check that out on 973ESPN.com. You can follow me on Twitter, RichQ on Q. Always invite the feedback as well. And also, do not forget JourneymanBoxing.com, a ton of young amateur boxing content, young fighters that we try to spotlight and focus and kind of take it beyond the fight. Don't forget, follow our photographer, Shadei Shagagi. Takes great shots ringside, Shagagi on Twitter as well, as we start to wrap it up on a Friday. So again, tomorrow we'll look into the Ward and Smith fight a little more. I know it's a pretty good boxing weekend. I think it's a pretty good boxing weekend because anytime you get a stacked day of boxing, as I like to call it, where you get to kind of pick and choose. And we'll also talk about a couple fights that are going on in Philadelphia because, you know, there comes a time, and we'll say this a little more for this weekend show, but there comes a time when you cover these guys long enough, and you kind of know when guys are just hanging around, collecting a check, when guys are real genuine and they want to get back in there, and then sometimes when guys just look like they're shot as a fighter. And, you know, it's unfortunate because, you know, a lot of times the promoter's job is to put on the card and to get the fighters to come out. Now, I'll tell you this. A couple guys you should definitely keep an eye out for. I'm going to give you two names right now. One of them is Antonio Nieves. Okay? Junior featherweight. This kid's from Cleveland, Ohio. He's from Ohio. He's taking on Stefan Young tomorrow night. That's on the undercard of the Ward Smith card. Antonio Nueves is a kid that likes to come out. He's very aggressive. He's got punching power. He likes to finish off his opponents. He always closes the round. And I'm not talking about closing a round where it's that 10-second knock and he's closing the round with a fury. No. He's 12-0, I believe. Now, he's had a certain point in his career, too. He's 28 years of age. So he's making it very interesting, though. He's a tough kid. He's out of Cleveland, Ohio. And like I said, he has some knockout power. He's a sound fighter. That's one name watch for. If you get a chance tomorrow night, definitely watch for Antonio Nueves. Obviously, we've got the Porter versus Adrian Broner fight, which is on the NBC Sports Network. That's 12 rounds. Earl Spence Jr. is always a good watch if you get an opportunity, if you haven't seen him. But I'm going to give you another fighter to keep an eye out for. Daniel Franco. Great nickname, by the way, Twitch. Daniel Twitch Franco. Another name that if you don't really know a lot of these young fighters that had some great amateur background, great amateur pedigree, they're moving this kid. He's 23 years of age. He turned pro when he was 19, super featherweight, 10 wins, does have knockout power, seven KOs out of 10 wins. And, he's one of those fighters where he might take a guy on with a lopsided record, but he'll take on a guy who's got 16, 17 fights already under his belt, 19 fights, and he's been actually stepping up, and it's going to be interesting to see. Tomorrow night, he takes on Jonathan Alcantara, and that's going to be, again, 8 rounds, so that'll be an interesting fight to watch. So I don't know if they're going to air that fight or not. I highly doubt it for TV, but that's just another name to kind of keep an eye out for going forward. All right, folks, now we're going to start wrapping up on a Friday edition of Double Jive Radio inside the Journeyman Boxing Studio. Special thanks to our sponsors, Casanova Boxing Gloves. Certainly check them out online and grit2glory.com. Grit, the number 2, glory.com. Great inspirational merchandise. And, of course, the AC Pal in Atlantic City, always making a difference. Do not forget, we will be back in the saddle from the studios of Journeyman Boxing on Saturday, and we'll recap the fights on Sunday as well. And we'll be back on the air at ESPN Radio 97.3 FM on Monday, and I'm sure we will sprinkle in a little boxing. Also, go to their YouTube page, check out the interview I had with Derek Webster, and also I had an opportunity to speak to Showtime's Al Bernstein earlier in the week. Everyone have a good Friday. And just remember, it is not the destination, it's the journey. As always, gracias por tu tiempo. Buen día. Hasta luego. We'll talk to you Monday, and we'll see you next time ringside.